Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for joining in today. Our presenter will be Len Gardiner from the region of Peel, and he's going to be talking about the modern approach to snow fence operations. So just before I hand it over to Len, I just want to quickly consider the sponsorship of this webinar, which is by the Winter Web App. Winter Web App is an online solution made by Ontario Good Roads, and it is designed completely for the public works, especially for Ontario. And basically what it is it's a toolkit for a number of tasks that are performed by the winter maintenance staff day to day. It's primarily to support the public works directors of the various municipalities in Ontario and beyond. We have a number of solutions that we bake as part of the Winter Web App. We only take on tasks where we think that we can exponentially simplify a task for you, or we can automate the task completely. So right now we have 4 services or add-ons within the Winter Web App. The first one is a winter planner. What this one does, it lets you create your winter maintenance plan. It works like TurboTax, so it's one of the easiest way to create your detailed winter plan. The second one is events tracker, that lets you paperlessly track the details of the winter. And the other one we have is an AVL Genius, which takes all the fleet tracking and everything online. Lots of good stuff in there. And the newest one that we have is a weather tracker, which allows subscribing municipalities to be compliant with the minimum maintenance standards of weather tracking throughout the year, not just the winter season. So I just want to give you a quick update on the weather tracker, since it's a new service that we provided. So weather tracker was released about 12 months ago, and it allows the municipalities to be in compliance with the minimum maintenance standards. The service, we wanted to make sure it's very simple to use, and it starts from the setup. You select a weather station, and we have over 470 stations within Ontario alone, and 250,000 stations across the globe that you can select from. The second step is that you identify when you want the reports to be delivered, include up to 4 times a day. And then finally, you can select all the staff members that you want the reports to go to. And we allow up to 30 staff members to receive these forecasts. This is what the report looks like. You have all the basic data that you look for the weather tracking. You have time, temperature, feels like, humidity, dew point, probability of precipitation, rain and snow, wind, and etc. We also include the advisories for your locations. And you get these reports 4 times a day automatically at the time of selection. One of the big features is red receipts, and people love this. What this basically does is anytime you get a forecast from us and you click on that, the timestamp is saved. You can actually see when, go back in history, and you can check who read the report and when. Some quick stats on the weather tracker so far. We have 20 municipalities in Ontario alone. We are sending about 500 forecasts a day, and these are going to about 150 plus staff members. And to date, in the last 12 months or so, we have delivered over 90,000 forecasts. Here's a quick quote from one of our users, Colin Trevitt from Canada Brand. Reliable, accurate weather forecasts are desired by all municipalities, and our issues were resolved when we switched over to Ontario's weather tracker add-on midway through the recent winter season. We have been very impressed with its ease of setup and use, and also with the provision of 4 daily forecasts. Also from Colin Hawkins from City of Dryden, many programs that are developed to work in the south of Ontario don't work as well in the north, but the OJR's weather tracker has produced better quality forecasts with greater detail than any of the forecasting services we have used. So we're really happy with the feedback that we're getting, and we just wanted to share that quick update with you. We do not have an official trial program, but if you want to send a quick email to me at fahad@ogra.org, we can probably set you up with a 30-day trial. Before I pass it on to Len, I just want to tell you who Len is. He has been in road operations for 28 years, the last 15 of which have been as a supervisor. He has always believed in finding innovative solutions and alternatives to operational activities. This involves working with the residents to find solutions that work for everyone, which directly supports the Region of Peel's working with you philosophy. So with that, if you give me just a quick moment, I'm going to turn it over to Len. Okay, Len.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Fahad. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Hopefully, we can give you a little bit of useful information and insight as to what the Region of Peel is currently doing with snow fence operation. Thank you very much to the OJRA for the invite. I'm a great fan of the OJRA and everything that they do, so I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to everybody. Okay, I'm going to minimize because all I can see is that big ugly face. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my presentation and can hear me clearly.
Yes.
So we are going to start. Why is that not working?
If you click on the presentation and then go, yeah.
There we go. Okay, so just a little bit of quick information about the region of Peel. For those of you not familiar with us, we have a population of over 1.5 million people, and we have 500,000 vehicles approximately that use our regional road network every day. The region of Peel is made up of 3 local municipalities: the town of Caledon, the city of Brampton, and the city of Mississauga. The region of Peel has a diverse landscape. We're made up of rural areas, which is primarily the town of Caledon, as well as urban cross sections, which are the city of Brampton and the city of Mississauga. At the region of Peel, we provide a level 1 service on all the roads that we maintain, even the roads that AADTs would dictate would be a level 2 or a level 3. We maintain all the roads that we look after as a level 1. At times that's a daunting task, but that is our level of service. So just a little bit about snow fences and windbreaks, because I'm going to go into a bunch of different areas throughout the presentation. But why does Peel use snow fences? Well, as I mentioned, we have a level 1 service on our roads, and the use of snow fence complements that level of service. Because we have a bare pavement policy, we tend to use a decent amount of road salt on our network, and that does leave us vulnerable during winter events. What I mean by that is, as some of you, the larger municipalities who use salt can attest, once you have the salt brine residual on your asphalt, if snow was to blow across the road, ideally you would want it just to blow across and let it go from one side to the other. But when you have a salt residue on the roadway, eventually the snow that blows across will activate that brine, making the pavement wet and therefore making the snow stick. So this is the issues that we run into. So we try our best to keep the snow from actually going across the roadway, and we do that. One of the ways we do that is with the use of snow fences. The snow fences provide an immediate windbreak for drifting snow. There's other things that are out there. I mean, trees, forest areas, buildings, shelters, but snow fence in the open areas gives us an immediate windbreak for the drifting snow. Relatively, the old wooden snow fence that everybody's familiar with, it's relatively easy to install and remove. You hammer your T-rails in and you wire the wooden fence to it, and you got instant snow fence. At the region of Peel, currently our budget for the entire region is about $320,000 a year. That's up and down. So I will go into the quantities in a couple of slides, but I apologize if I don't know the audience as far as who's doing what. I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence. I realize everybody probably knows what snow fence is and how it works, but I just thought I would go back to the beginning. I found this interesting slide from one of our previous presentations. So for how snow fences and windbreaks work, so you put up the snow fence. I don't know if I can do that, if you can see it here. So you put your snow, the wind comes usually out of the west or out of the north is where we would install the fence. And then the snow will hit it and will drop it on the opposite side of the fence, therefore preventing it from reaching the roadway. So a little bit of history. Prior to 2006, we pretty much were using only wooden snow fence. We weren't into any other method. We just put up the old slatted wooden snow fence. Of that meters was in the North District, which is what I look after, and that's primarily the town of Caledon and the north end of Brampton. At that time, all of our snow fence was installed by a contractor. We weren't in the business at all, so we just assigned the work to the contractor, and they were familiar with our operation. They knew where to go, and they got it up and put it down for us. So prior to this time, we were putting snow fence up in the areas that the previous generation put it on, and the previous generation before that put it on, in that they weren't giving a full coverage to the field. So they tended to put it just in spots where maybe they found that they had windy areas, but they were leaving large sections of each field open. So we remedied that in the initial revamping of this program. We used to, in order to get the fence out to the field, we would carry it. We would have the truck and the trailer out on the roadway, and the guys would take it from the fence or from the trailer and the truck and put it on their shoulder, and they would walk through the field and drop it, and then there'd be other guys unrolling it and things like that. This created a hazard. Primarily plowed fields were an issue. Uneven ground, you had you're carrying a weight over your shoulder. Guys would twist ankles. We had a high risk of injuries. We had, susceptible to back injuries, tweaking your back. We had knee injuries, ankle injuries, all types of stuff. So it was really an issue previously. Now, as of 2018, we are now installing over 70,000 meters of fence in the entire region, 60,000 of which is in the North District, which is in my district, and which again is mostly in Caledon. Probably in 2008 or 2009, around that time, we got back into the business. When we went to the larger quantities of fence, we actually split the work with the contractor. So they did half and we did half. So that was a struggle to get back into the business, especially with the old methods that was make the guys vulnerable to injuries. So I want to start. We have three basically snow fencing programs that we have here at the Region of Peel. I'm going to start first with the natural snow fence program. Basically what the natural snow fence program is we purchase rows of corn that we ask the farmers to leave in the field, and if they do that, we buy it from them. So we started doing this in 2006. Ideally, we're asking them to leave 8 to 12 rows for us to use as a snow fence. Sometimes we get 6. It depends on how many rows their combine head will leave. So we have gone as little as 6, and it works fine. What we found, and I mean, you'll notice that the slides, there's a picture at the bottom throughout some of the slides, but what we found is the corn is, if it's healthy corn, you can get corn that's around 7 feet tall and sturdy, whereas a wooden snow fence is about 4 feet tall. So the corn holds a lot more snow back from the road than the wooden fence does if it's healthy corn. A benefit to the farmer is that they could, if the corn is in decent shape, they actually get to take that corn off in the spring. So they actually get to keep the corn just after the season. So they get the corn plus we pay them for it. The thing we found with snow fence is normally with any kind of snow fence, you're looking for about a 25-meter offset from the edge of the roadway. So that's where we put our wooden fence. But what we found with the corn is the farmers didn't want to leave the offset. They didn't like having the gap between the fence and the first row of corn. So in an effort to kind of work with them, we experimented with just that, or leaving the corn right at the fence. And since for the last few years anyway, that's all that we do, and it works 100%. There is no issues. The snow does not make it past the corn onto the road. It works great. Okay, so we had some trials and errors with the corn snow fence. Ideally, it involves, because we need the cooperation of the farmers, it requires us to enter into a kind of a relationship with them. So what we found is that the farmers want to talk, and they don't want to come to you. They don't want to talk on the phone. They don't want a news, like a pamphlet or a sheet of paper. They want you to go to them. They want FaceTime. They want you to sit in their driveway or their shed, and we've even had the foreman sitting up in the tractor while they were plowing, just to talk about stuff. So we found that out pretty quick, that's the service that they wanted, and we had no problem doing that. A key part of the success of having a corn program is working with the farmers. If you're not willing to take their needs into consideration, it's not going to work. So we found that out, again, relatively quickly. Issues like fall wheat, rutting in the fields, if we were to take the tractors in and leave ruts in the fall wheat, that becomes an issue with them. They're fertilizing their fields in the spring, or leaving beans on late in the year. All of these things are issues that farmers have to deal with, that we respect and try and work with them on to get their stuff done. And again, I spoke about the relationship that we've created with them, and it's between the foreman, my foreman Rob Gauthier, and the staff that we have here at the region. They've done a great job building the relationships with the farmers in this area, and with that, they do give us a little bit more leeway, and it's just a good two-way relationship that we've now have. And it started with snow fence, but now it's working into other areas. We've built that trust with them in the snow fence activity, and it now translates into other areas, whether it be tree removal, litter pickup, grass cutting, whatever it is. We do have that relationship. It's working very, very well so far. Issues that you have to be careful of with the corn, and it's something that the farmers, actually we lost a lot of participants, is what they refer to as volunteer corn. So volunteer corn is, you probably all seen it. You'll drive in the summertime, you'll see a hay field or a wheat field, and then you'll see stalks of corn shooting up every so often. That's volunteer corn. That's kernels left over from last year that find its way in the middle of the field. And the farmers blamed a lot of that on leaving the corn out over the winter, and subsequently not getting picked up and turning into volunteer corn. They claim it does affect, because it wreaks havoc with the integrity of the crop, whether it be beans or straw or hay or whatever. So volunteer corn is bad, and they're a lot of farmers said it wasn't worth it to them to carry on if that was going to happen. So we did have some people back out. What we found with the wheat fields is, if we left, when we try a couple of different methods to when we remove it, and we tried rolling the fence up and leaving it in there for another crew to come pick up. But we found that if the wooden fence still had a lot of dye in it, then it would bleed out into the field. So anyway, we don't do that. Poor corn. This has been an issue for us. What I mean by poor corn is a rotating crop, in that the farmers won't put corn in the same field 2 years in a row because of the nutrients that it removes from the ground. So we can't rely on corn being in the same field year after year. So we just kind of take what we get. So usually by about May or June, we can see where the cornfields are, and at that time we start approaching the farmers. But we have a lot of farmers that are very loyal to the program, and they believe in the program, and they will plant corn at the edge of their field year after year after year. So what we're finding is, in the second, the third, and the fourth year, the corn goes from being 7 feet high and lush green and sturdy to maybe 5 feet high to maybe 4.5 feet high to 4 feet high. So we don't turn that away. And we had a lot of discussion here at the region, whether, because it doesn't meet what we're looking for with regards to healthy corn. But we made the decision that if they were planting the corn to participate in our program, we would not turn them away. We really appreciate the effort and the participation and the loyalty that they're giving us, that we do not. We have not had a circumstance yet where we have refused any corn that a farmer has offered up to us. So a big thing that they want to know is, how much are you going to pay me? That's ultimately the deal breaker for them. It's got to be worth their while. And at the same time, you need to know what pricing you have as a municipality to determine whether buying corn is even worth it for you. You may be putting snow fence up cheaply or more expensively, but you need to know what your prices are, what the market costs are, and what you can offer the farmer per meter of corn. So the way we do it is we pay per linear meter. So even though they leave 6, 8, 12 rows of corn, we pay them, we measure the length of the overall corn, and you get 300 meters, 500 meters, 800 meters, whatever it turns out to be. So knowing your cost is important, because when you take your costs up and down into consideration, you have to take both. So years ago, when we started this program, we were up over $5 a meter for the region to put up wooden snow fence, and that was up and down. It was about $250, $240 up and subsequently that down. So that going in, we've actually dropped our price quite a bit since that point. But it made sense. So when we did the pricing for the corn, we were started out, I think, at like $1.80 a meter. And what we try to incorporate is we take the market cost and we add some so that there's actually the farmers are getting paid above market cost for the corn. So that was we have to try to find ways to make it attractive for them, while at the same time still making it cheaper for the corn to be there rather than putting wooden snow fence in. So that's what I refer to as a win-win. The farmers win because they're getting above market cost, and we win because it's still cheaper than putting up the wooden snow fence. So ideally, we haven't run into a situation yet, but the corn is the better bang for the buck as far as that. We've made a lot of efficiencies with regards to our wooden snow fence program, and we're close, but we're still not where where it would be to just buy corn. So corn remains a mainstay in our snow fence program for sure. The other thing that we found, or we actually determined right from the start when we started buying the corn, because it's based on market value of the corn initially, we found that some years it skyrockets and some years it plummets. So the farmers are fine when it skyrockets because they get more money, but they don't like it when it plummets, and we give them half of what we gave them last year for the same corn type thing. So we've kind of evened it out. We take last year's, and if the market is up, we add a little bit to it, but we try to go as a steady increase rather than go to $5 a meter down to $1 a meter, because that loses people right away. So we made the agreement that we would never go back. Even if the market plummeted, we would still honor last year's price because it's still cheaper than us putting wooden snow fence up. So that's our policy. We don't go back. We would maintain or go up a little bit, whether it be 10 cents or 25 cents a meter, but we would never go back. So this is just an example. There's a couple of these floating around, but this is just an example of how we calculate the price that we pay for the corn. It takes the 12 rows into consideration, roughly the spacing, so on and so on. It's based on how many bushels are per acre, what the exchange rate is for the Canadian dollar to the American dollar, and then what a price that the Americans are getting per bushel. And then at the end, you can get your per meter price, which is down here, and you can determine at that point if it's too high, too low, and adjust accordingly. So I just got a couple of pictures just to kind of show you, and one is actually a comparison that we did in 08. So this is just a typical picture. If you drive by the corn, at this point the corn's turned yellow, it's dying off, but it's still standing and it's still catching the snow. Just another example, this was a few years ago. I apologize, I don't have too many pictures from 2018 because by the time I was invited to this, we didn't have that much snow in the fields. So, but this is a good example of what the corn will do and how much snow that it will catch. So this is a comparison that I did in 2008. This was a couple of years into our program. So at the top left, you can see on January 3rd, that was just the way the fence looked. The corn was wet, had accumulated a substantial amount of snow. On January 9th, we received our January thaw, and that's the way the field looked less than a week later. The bottom right is 3 weeks later. It was still the corn was still standing, and then on February 6th of that same year, we got a lot more snow, and again the corn held the snow. You can see how much snow is being caught within the corn. So even though it gets dried up and kind of wrinkly looking, it does stand up and it will last throughout the whole winter. Something that we do here, and we don't do it necessarily every time, but what we offer up to the farmers, and we did it right at the onset, was we will put a sign on the fence outside where the corn is kept, just to let the public know that the corn being left in the field is part of an initiative that the Region of Peel is undertaking with the help of the farmers. So you may see this sign around regional roads during the winter time when the snow fence is up and the corn is up. Okay, so wooden snow fence is where we've probably focused the majority of our effort in the last few years. It all started with a meeting with the group POG, which stands for Peel Agricultural Advisory Working Group. So I was asked to speak to that group. On that group is a mixture of counselors, farmers, regional staff, and bylaw people, and so on. So I was asked to come in and speak to our snow fence program. I had no idea, good, bad, indifferent. I just said, yeah, I'll do it. So I went in, gave them a 10-minute presentation, and I got hammered. I got jumped on by the farmers. They started yelling, they make accusations. The region doesn't care about anybody. You do what you want to do. You don't respect anybody. And it really took me aback. I was really shocked that that was the reception that I had received. And so I asked questions. I knew the farmers that were there, and I had asked some questions. So they expressed a great concern, as I'd referred to earlier, with regards to, we didn't take any consideration into their operation, their fertilizing schedule, their crop removal schedules, planting schedules, nothing like that. We just followed previously the Snow Fence Act and the Municipal Act. We just went in and did as we needed to, and as we did, like I say, generation to generation to generation type thing. So I took my notes and I came back to my group, and I sat down with my foreman at the time, and kind of let them know that this is what happened to me the other night. So at that point we sat down, and from that point we came up with a couple of practices that we do that we've had great luck with and great response to. The biggest one is that we have now included the farmer in the process of putting the fence up and down. So it kind of combines with the purchasing of the corn, because a lot of times the farmers with the corn are also farmers that have fields that we want to put fence in. So we kind of kill two birds with one stone. But we now have visits with the farmer, and our foreman will go out. We have staff here that are from the agriculture community that know these farmers, and they will go and they will spend the time to sit and they will talk to the farmers about the corn, about when we're going in. And like I had mentioned previously, the relationship is very respectful and collaborative. It's a two-way relationship. So the farmers are now comfortable enough that if they have something going on, whether it be spraying or whether it be leaving beans on later, they will contact us and say, don't put your fence in or don't take it down until this or that. So we've created that relationship, and it works great. The feedback that we got was almost instantaneous. It was astounding. The mayor received credit or compliments for us. Our manager, director, everybody was getting compliments at just the appreciation. They still didn't want us in their field, but they appreciated that we had a job to do, and they very much were grateful that we now included them in the process. That was the first step. In addition to that, we tried to build a better program overall with regards to how much fence we were getting. Part of working with the farmers was a concern that we were taking too long to remove the fence primarily, but to install it as well. So we tried to create a program that would shorten the installation process as well as the removal process. So in order to do that, we approached the staff, our working staff, and the guys that are actually out in the field doing the work. And there was a little reluctance at first because it wasn't an activity that everybody was really passionate about. But over the last few years, we've made a lot of changes and included them, enabled them to make changes and engage them in what we do, that they're very much on board now. They don't mind doing snow fence. They know what we're trying to accomplish, and they very much are part of it. So we very much appreciate that. The one thing that we learned relatively early in the revamping part is that we now go to the fence. We stop taking the fence into the fields. We tried a couple of methods where we would rent like a gator style ATV, have a little trailer on the back, and one guy would go in and out of the field, load the trailer up, take it out to the road, and that worked great. That helped out a lot. But now we actually have got to a point where we're actually taking tractors and wagons into the field, and we're actually picking it up, taking the wagons, hooking it to a truck, and taking it to the storage site. So with each step that we've been able to incorporate, we're getting better results. And again, it was a trial and error. I wish to say I don't have a slide right now or words of wisdom that said this is the best way to install, because we're still trying to find it. We're still trying to find the best combination. It's a work in progress, and that's what I've asked the guys. Don't get caught in the rut that we had in previous generations where you just go with what's comfortable. Work with the farmers and always try to find a better way. So hopscotching, that is one of the biggest things that we now is a reality in our snow fence world. Because we take the farmers operation into consideration, there's a lot of times where we have to leave fields for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And as a result, we what we call hopscotch, although we go back and forth and make a second return visit to a road or to an area. Not ideal, not the best for unit costs, but what we found is that with the different methodologies and our different practices year to year, we've been able to keep our unit costs relatively stationary with the hopscotching included. So we haven't lost as far as financials go, and we've gained because the farmers are really appreciative that we're actually working with them to help them with their crops. So it's been a win-win as both of that on that front goes. So where are we stacking up with a contractor? We have reduced our costs. I mentioned we were about 5 and change a bunch of years ago, and we are down roughly to about $4 a meter up and down. So we're about $2.20, I think, up and about the same down. And our contractor is, I think, about $2. So we're with comparable to what the contractor's doing, but what we provide that the contractor's not is we are actually taking on the hopscotching part. We're still in the contract with our snow fence that we have not incorporated any kind of hopscotching ability with the contractor, so we're undertaking that ourselves just to provide the higher level of service. So dealing with a contractor and in dealing with a contract, you'll run into resistance that they're not willing to go back to a place a second and a third time. So that is the advantage of having municipal staff do this work, is that we have the flexibility, and with the buy-in and the loyalty to the program, our unit costs are not suffering. No matter how friendly we are, no matter how polite we are and collaborative that we are, at the end of the day, come spring, the farmer says every day, get off my property, I need my field, get off my field, get off my field. So removal of the snow fence has been a big area for us to look at over the last few years. And like I say, we come up with a different strategy every year. Like I mean, there's the bullet, the work with the weather you're given. This year is a perfect example with the mild March that we had with the snow removal, or the snow left the fields a lot earlier. We were actually able to go in March and take our fence down, and we had the region's portion, the half that we do, we had it down by the first week of April, and the contractor was just getting started. We did approach the contractor. They were upset because they didn't think that was fair. The problem that contractors run into is they either have to rent equipment, or their equipment that they're using is committed to other snow removal programs, and that was our case. They couldn't bring the equipment in because it was still firmed up with winter maintenance contracts that they have. So we did give the upper hand. We were able to get out in the fields earlier, and so now we've removed over half, if not 2/3 of our fence already, and the farmers they're very grateful for our effort. So as far as the wooden, just a little bit for the wins, because we do have some trials as well. So back in the day, when I say back in the day, I'm looking at mid 90s ish. We were getting about 70 to 80 rolls up a day, and when we went through the first revamp after our POG meeting, we quickly went up to 100 to 120 rolls a day, and that was just strictly with an operational change with regards to bringing in equipment, staff, storage, all that. We were able to have that increase pretty much between the first and the second year. between that time and our current day, we went from the 100 to 120. We're now currently getting 150 to 170 rolls a day. And again, that in itself is substantial. But when you keep in mind the hopscotching that we do, it goes a long way. If we were able to start at the end of a road and just finish it all the way down, that we would be well over 200 rolls in a day. So again, I'm not taking any credit for that. That's all the guys. Like I say, Rob Gauthier drives this program, does a great job, and the guys really step up for Rob, and they do a fantastic job. And again, this staff buy-in is key. They're not satisfied with the status quo anymore. We have a lot of new bodies here and a lot of different ways of thinking. And the region of Peel is going through a change where we now have a working with you philosophy, and we've incorporated that in our snow fence program. We work with the residents, we find out what their needs are, and if it means that we modify our program, then we follow the channels through the budget or through business case to do so. So this program is a perfect example of what the region of Peel is doing, trying to change the philosophy and the culture that we have when dealing with the relationship between municipal staff and residents. So again, with our efforts, we actually were able to win an award here at the region for innovation. We won that it was for the 2015 working year, and we received it in 2016. And like I say, we included, there's a lot of guys that made this possible, and it was a good news story. The guys were kind of surprised. They're not used to getting awards and going for lunches and stuff like that. So the guys were really kind of surprised and appreciative, but the recognition was very well received. And like I say, now we're looking at other activities to kind of apply the same approach. So some of the hurdles that we had was materials being left in the field. That is something that we haven't, I can't say that we've eliminated altogether. I'm sure it still happens, but it doesn't happen as frequently as it used to happen. We would leave T-rails in the fields, metal ties, slats from the wooden fence, stuff like that. All of that has potential to affect either the crop or the livestock that are in that field. We've heard of, I don't believe it's happened in the region of Peel, but we've heard of animals. I believe it was a horse that stepped on a T-rail, and it tipped up and it speared itself with the other end of the T-rail. So we do have issues. There's farmers that are adamant that they cannot have snow fence in their field because of livestock concerns. We try to be respectful of it. It's not a very long stretch, but again, we try to take the farmers' concerns into account, and we weigh the risks and the gains on it. We do have something, if you're getting into the wooden snow fence business and you have long stretches that you're putting up, if you have livestock that are in that field, make sure you have your breaks in the fields. Otherwise, the cows will just walk over, or horses will just walk over the fence. They'll trample it. But if there's a break in it, they'll find the break and they'll go from one side of it to the other. Again, I talked about the fall wheat and how the ruts are bad. If you leave ruts in the field with the fall wheat and the rain hits it, it'll drown the fall wheat where the ruts are. And again, you could be on the hook. You could be dealing with a claim from your risk management people to replace the revenue loss from the fall wheat. So, and I made reference to the bleeding earlier. So now living snow fence is something that has been around for a few years at the region of Peel. And we're still not, it's not one of the bigger components of our program, but we do have it, and we're actually seeing some gains. And again, there was some decent feedback from our program. So ideally, you're dealing with two rows of trees, and they're offset so that when the trees mature, they'll fill in the gaps and they'll break the wind. When the trees go in, they're just small. They're about a foot and a half high. It takes quite a few years for them to mature to a point where they actually act as a windbreak. For our program, we ask for a 15-year commitment with the resident to when we plant the trees on their property. After the 15 years, the idea is if they absolutely don't want the trees anymore on their property, or they want the field back or whatever, then then the trees will be removed. So, but we do ask for at least a 15-year commitment. Determining the species that are wanted, we touch base with our local municipality if they have the Parks and Rec people, or even with we work with the CVC, the TRCA, and they're very good at letting us know for the area what trees species should be going in to be native to the area, as well as act as a good snow windbreak for you. Again, it's a partnership that we have. We really rely on the conservation. For Peel Region, we deal with the Credit Valley Conservation and the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, as well as the property owner. Again, we've now created another multiple participant relationship that so far is working very well. The benefits to having a living snow fence. This is information that we pulled off the internet years ago when we kind of were researching this, but they do attribute it to higher crop yields. The idea being that with providing a windbreak, it will keep the more topsoil on the field instead of letting the wind blow it away. So it ends up rewarding you with the higher crop yields, improved spray applications, better crop pollination, dispenses snow more evenly across croplands. Again, it aids in the soil erosion because it keeps the topsoil on the field, reduces spring flooding, and there's no need for installing a wooden fence, which a lot of people, that alone is worth it to them, just to keep the region from putting fence up year after year. So now the issues that we have at the region is we do not pay the property owner for use of the land. We provide them the trees free of charge and install them and maintain them, but we don't actually pay them for the use of the land. Other municipalities are doing that, and then I think they're farther along. We have recognized that it is going to be an issue. We've pretty much exhausted the participants that are willing to do what we're offering. So we've kind of run a little bit dry here right now, but we're hoping to revamp a couple of things and take it back out. So we did have a concern the first couple of years with trees dying off. We had one location where one row died off, and we have to go back and deal with that. Sometimes you need to put the fence in behind the trees until the trees are mature enough to to do their job. So you've got a couple of rows of trees with fence or corn in behind it. And I'll be honest with you, the program has lost a little bit of steam because we've been focusing more so on the wood in the program, working with the farmers there. So now that we've kind of got that on track, we're switching gears and we're going to pick up the living snow fence program again. So this is just an example. You can see the corn in behind, but you got the 2 rows of the trees. And like I say, if there's corn in the field or snow fence, you still have that in there until the trees become mature. This is a photo from a presentation I did quite a few years ago, and I noticed today that it was actually labeled incorrectly, but it still illustrates. You can see the corn on the right-hand side of the picture, and you can see on the roadway it's not blowing, whereas the next field over it says natural snow fence, but it's actually the wooden snow fence. But the snow fence is filled, and that is a downside of wooden snow fence. It will hold all the snow back until the drift is higher than the fence, and then you're susceptible to blowing snow again. And you can see that where the fence was full, it was blowing across the road. So I stole that from a presentation I did promoting the corn, oddly, because it showed, again, the corn was higher and it was holding back more snow than the wooden snow fence. So next steps for us, again, we're going to have to revamp this program. we're going to do a little bit more of door knocking with certain residents that have expressed interest, and we're going to explore our appetite for whether we do want to offer some payment for use of the land, or if we want to keep status quo. Something that we did, we did a project last year, I believe it was, with the Credit Valley Conservation. We're actually now exploring using various planting patterns. So instead of using 2 offset rows, we actually planted in 2 rows of trees, but one at the road edge, just inside the fence, and the other one on the other side of the field. So the 2 rows of trees are actually probably 100 meters apart, maybe, but we're kind of exploring the idea once they mature that the first row of trees will break the wind, and even though the wind will pick up throughout the 100 meters, it won't be going fast enough so that when it hits the second row, it still will be effective. So we're kind of excited to see if that's actually going to work, because like I say, with the corn and with the tree planting, the 25-meter offset is not necessarily what we require anymore. The fear always being that if you planted things too close to the road, the snow would just end up being dumped on the road, and we have not had that experience yet. So we're confident with experimenting with this 25-meter offset idea. So that pretty much brings me to the end of what I had. I would like to give some shout outs to the people listed here. I mentioned Rob Gauthier. Rob is my foreman here at the Region of Peel, and he looks after the snow fence program. Rob has done a fantastic job. He has taken this project to heart, and he has championed this thing far beyond anything that we could ask for. So I thank Rob all the time, but I do want to make a shout out to him, because his efforts don't go unnoticed, and he did a great job. Again, Roy Mosier, who is with the Credit Valley Conservation, he is our contact, and he was the one that we worked with on the planting pattern project up on 136. Tom Hildebrandt is our contact at the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. So Tom's helped us out a great deal over the years as well. I would like to take a second to kind of recognize the staff. I don't know if we have anybody from the County of Wellington with us today, but the County of Wellington, when we got into this business, they had already far exceeded anything that we could have hoped for with regards to using trees as a windbreak. If you're interested in that side of it, I would urge you to check the Green Legacy web page on the County of Wellington's website. Rob Johnson is running that program, and we went over and did a driving tour a few years ago, and we were showing a few locations, and what they're doing over in Wellington is fantastic. They're far ahead of what currently we're doing, but it does give us a bar to try to reach towards. But again, they've got a great program at Wellington, and if trees are of any interest to anybody, I would really urge you to touch base with those guys. Sally Rook is probably I think she's listening, but she's was instrumental in getting both the natural snow fence and the living snow fence programs off the ground. She did a lot of research when she was in road operations. She's now at our head office, and rightfully so. She's doing great, but she did a lot of work, and she did the road show thing. She would make presentations to farming groups and business groups, and she put a lot of effort in to get the corn program going, as well as the tree program. And again, finally, to my staff, without which what we've done would not have gone off the ground. With their support and buy-in, we've been able to do great things, and we're still looking to do more. So again, I want to thank everybody there, and I think that is it.
Perfect. Thanks. Thank you, Len. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you good.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was an awesome presentation, and thank you for taking the time to put together the presentation and delivering today. There are a number of people that are still on here that I'm sure they're appreciating quite a bit. I just want to remind those online right now that if you have any questions, please post them on in the chat, and Len can address them directly. So I'll just read them off to him. But just I was just making some quick notes to initiate some of the questions. How for installation of the fence, how far, I'm not sure if you covered this, but how far should the fence posts be? What's the distance?
Yeah, you're looking at your 25 meters is primarily what you're putting snow fence at. So from the edge of the road back to where you put your stakes is traditionally 25 meters. Excuse me. We still do that with the wooden fence. We still maintain that distance, but like I say, with the corn, just to kind of work with the farmers, we experimented with leaving the corn at the field or the fence line, and it's worked fine. So we're trying to experiment with that 25 meters. The key point is knowing how high your windbreak is, whether it be a fence, tree, or corn or whatever, and kind of respecting or appreciating how long that drift is going to be. So you're trying to avoid having that drift end up on the roadway, which is going to create extra work for you. You want to have the drift end and before the roadway, which means that the wind will pick up again, but it's not depositing anything on the road.
Got it. Okay. Okay. We have a question from Jerry. How are you attaching the snow fence to the T-bars?
We have it's a metal wire about 10 inches long. It has loops at each end, and you can buy them. It's snow fence tie wire. Excuse me. And there is a tool that they have. You wrap the wire around the fence and the T-rail. You put one loop in the two loops on the tool, and it spins. So it's a quick. It takes all of 5 seconds to do, and there's 3 of those wires per stake.
Okay, we have another question about the T-post. This is about T-post from Mark. Mark is asking, do you use equipment to install the T-posts?
Yes, we have a post pounder that is on. We have 2 tractors and 2 post pounders. So we have 2 separate crews, and they go out. One will do the west side, one will do the east side. It doesn't really matter, but one goes one way, one goes the other way, and there's a 2-person crew. So one guy's driving the tractor, one guy's pounding the stakes in, and it's just, one guy will put the T-rail in, and the pounder, the ground is soft, so you don't really pound it. You just kind of shove it in the ground with the hydraulic power, the weight of the pounder, and then the T-rails go 4 meters apart. So the way that they measure that is the tractor tire is, so far, the tractors that we have, one rotation of that tractor tire is 4 meters. So we came up with a scientific method of you have a line of spray paint on the tire. So when that spray paint goes back around, you put the next pole in and the next one, and the next one. So that's how we install them.
Great. Have you accounted for any cost savings due to the program of snow fencing?
What do you mean accounted for them?
I mean, have you done any research on how much cost savings can municipalities do by employing snow fencing?
Oh, like the benefit of having snow fence versus not having it?
Right.
No,
Correct,
I
correct.
actually, we did actually touch base with our risk management people back in 2014 when I did the presentation to POG, and I thought I had a chart that I couldn't find it. So the people that were there then aren't there now, but there was confirmation that yes, that having snow fence, they had it was a chart or a graph that showed one lawsuit versus the $200,000 for snow fence, and they quickly showed that it would potentially save millions of dollars if you could determine that the snow fence helped improve the condition of the roadway. But like I say, I couldn't find the 2014 data, and when I went to them, our people this year, they didn't have anything. They weren't familiar with it, so I kind of put them on the spot. I only did it a few days ago because I thought I had it. So, but no, I don't have numbers, but we did get confirmation that it is far beneficial to have snow fence, especially for, again, the program that we have. A municipality that say doesn't use a lot of salt, that would be able to promote snow blowing across the road. They may find that snow fence is a burden. So for a municipality that, like say, has a lot of salt residual on the asphalt, we find that it's beneficial.
Understood. Okay. We have one more question from Jerry again. Favorite tree for use in living snow fence?
That I don't know because I have not myself done the planting yet, but I believe in the spots that we do a lot of spruce. In the areas that we have the participants that we had, I believe that was a decision made by the conservation as well as the landowner, because I think we give them choices, and I believe right now they have a lot of spruce going in.
Is there an ideal height for the fence?
For the fence itself, or for
The fence itself.
well, the fence itself is 4 feet tall. So that's pretty much that's what it is. Pretty much standard size. Like I say, the corn will give you about 7 or 8 feet, depending on how healthy it is. Which again will hold way more snow than the fence. And then the trees, like I say, Wellington's got windbreaks over in there that are I think they were like 10, 15 feet tall. It was like cedar hedges that were that went the length of the field, and it was just impressive. Like you stood behind it and there was just no wind. It was amazing. So that's the thing you also have to consider when you're planting trees is the maturity. And therefore, you know, with the offset or you may want that 25 meter or 30 meter offset, because depending on the species of trees, if it gets to a certain point, you may end up creating a hazard on your roadway if they're too close. So that's again the project that we did on 136. That's kind of what we're waiting to see, is if having the row of trees by the fence line is going to be an issue. We don't think it is, because we have up Airport Road in the Mona Mills, the village of Mona Mills, there's mature trees right at the fence line, been there for years, and it holds. We stopped putting fence in there because they got that big, and we don't have an issue with the snow landing on the fence. So we don't see it being a problem, but you just have to be careful.
Got it. The other question is, do you also install the fences at an angle, depending on the wind, I guess, blowing, or are they all parallel?
No, like at 90 degrees? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, they all go at 90 degrees. Yes. So I know the south yard, they will put brace posts up in certain areas. Every 4th or 5th stake, they'll put a brace pole in just to kind of help. They'll put it on the east side of the fence just so that when the wind comes out of the west, it doesn't shove it over. My guys, we don't. We just put it in. We hammer. You got a 7-foot T-rail, and 3 feet goes in the ground, and if that happens, we don't have an issue. So no, we just put them in at 90 degrees and move on.
Got it. Perfect. Okay, if anybody, we'll almost at 12 o'clock. So any questions, if you haven't been able to post, please send it to myself, and I can certainly forward it to Len, and then you guys can chat offline. Thanks, Len, once again. Really appreciate you coming on.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye now.
Bye.